Interesting. Yeah, I could see that. I think you might... Well, slap my monkey and call me a biscuit. It's you! I'm glad to see you. You know, Hyla and I were just sitting here talking about the unique weather patterns of Lake Superior. Feel free to join us. But I have a feeling you are here for a reason. You have a burning question on your mind, don't you? What do you think it is, Hyla? What's a ghoul? Well, okay, I can tell you. Kappa Squat. We've all heard the word floated about, but where did it originate? It's become a part of our culture and sort of a catch-all for any sort of creepy creature. It's even used as an adjective to describe people. Know someone who hangs out in cemeteries? Guilty. Or maybe you know someone who collects bones? Also guilty. Maybe you know someone who is obsessed with serial killers? Not guilty. We might call these people ghoulish. Ghouls are often mentioned in the same breath as ghosts and goblins, and I'm sure the word conjures images for many people of a sort of decrepit, half-dead creature, kind of like a cross between a mummy and a zombie and a goblin. But what really is a ghoul? The ghoul is actually Arabic in origin, the original name being al-Ghoul, the plural of which is ghailan, which is a name said to derive from a variety of sources depending on what source you read. It could derive from ghela, which means to seize, and could also refer to a greedy individual. It could refer to iqtal, which means to murder, or simply ghel, which means to kill. Notice a trend? The ghoul originated in pre-Islamic Arabia. However, there is some evidence suggesting that it may have actually originated in Mesopotamia. The Mesopotamians had a monster called a galu, which dwelt in the underworld. We do know that Bedouins traded with the Mesopotamians, and that they're quite close geographically. So it's entirely possible that the Bedouins may have brought something home with them. The ghoul was seen as a shape-shifting creature, often female, in which case it could be called a ghoulat, but it could also take the form of any animal. The one thing it could not change, however, about its appearance was that it had hooves. Although, according to some descriptions, it may have had one hoof and one ostrich foot. The ghoul wandered the desert disguised as an attractive woman in order to lure travelers, or sometimes would light fires out of the way off of the main road, again to lure travelers, pretty much always with the intent of killing and eating them. Sometimes the attractive woman variation was referred to as Umahula, which meant mother ghoul, or sometimes it was called a Si'alwa, which I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce, and which some people think was actually a separate entity from a ghoul. There were additionally several other variations of ghouls local to certain geographical areas, such as the Aisha Kandisha in Morocco, which more or less had the same traits as above, but was also afraid of iron, and was said to know the name of every man so that it could call out to them to lure them back to wherever they took these men. There was also the Qutrub in Yemen and the Nile Delta region of Egypt, which was a specifically male spirit, and the Ghoul of Sudan, which was said to have pitch black faces and eyes like fire. There was a couplet Arabs were supposed to utter if they encountered a ghoul, which went, "O ass-footed one, just bray away, we won't leave the desert plain nor ever go astray." It is said that the only way to kill a ghoul is to kill it in one blow, that if you strike it again, it will come back from the dead, or that it will take another 1,000 blows to then kill it. Many stories are written about the ghoul over the centuries, often featuring a ghoul with nefarious intent, which would then culminate with a fight between a human and a ghoul, in which case the human would win, of course. However, not all ghouls were depicted as evil. In fact, there were many stories where a ghoul befriended humans, helped travelers, or, often in the case of Si'alwa, actually married humans. There's also a somewhat more well-known version of the ghoul. which is where they hide out in cemeteries and feed on corpses, in addition to drinking blood of living victims, preying on children, and stealing coins. However, this one is actually not Arabic in origin. It was the invention of Antoine Galland. It first came to the West in the early 1700s when Galland adapted and expanded on 1001 Nights. In fact, many well-known stories from 1001 Nights, such as Aladdin, Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, and the story of Sidi Nouman, are actually likely to have been written by Galland with the help of a Syrian man that he met in Paris by the name of Johanna Diab. It was in the story of Sidi Nouman where we found the description of the ghoul for the first time. Galland described them as being male monsters who, in want of prey, will sometimes go in the night to the burying grounds and feed upon dead bodies that have been buried there. The ghoul's first appearance in English literature came in the late 1700s with William Beckford's Gothic novel Vathek, where the ghouls were malignant creatures and whose appearance was described when he wrote that the character of Vathek looked not less pale and haggard than the ghouls that wander at night among the graves. Both H.P. Lovecraft and Edgar Allan Poe cite Vathek as being a source of inspiration for their own work, and Poe himself later went on to write about ghouls in The Bells, describing them as neither man nor woman, neither brute nor human. Over the centuries, there have been many Islamic scholars who have sought a rational explanation for the belief in the ghoul, often writing that tales of the ghoul were the result of a natural fear of the desert, or perhaps hallucination resulting from the harsh living conditions, or even that ghouls may have been unfortunate souls who were born disfigured and subsequently abandoned to die in the desert due to pre-Islamic superstitions. Of course, in modern times, belief in the ghoul is largely considered to be fictional, like a folk tale. However, there are still a large amount of people who believe in ghouls, though nowadays they tend to be thought of as invisible spirits who can possess a person, a bit more akin to Western demons. And they can be exorcised by reading passages from the Holy Quran. But they're not usually depicted anymore as a physical creature that you can see, fight, or marry. In the West, ghouls are still popular in all different forms of media, from anime to movies to children's horror books. But it's uncommon that they stay true to their Arabic origins. More commonly, they're still depicted the same way Galland wrote about them in 1001 Nights. And even so, they're largely overshadowed by their more popular cousins, such as zombies and Frankenstein. I think part of the reason is that we do have such a vague idea of what a ghoul actually is. It's not a defined creature the way, say, Frankenstein's monster is typically seen. At least not in the West. Maybe because of it being a shapeshifter. Fun and somewhat related fact, the Yeti is actually called in Arabic Ghoul Jabal al-Himalaya, or Ghoul of the Himalayan mountains. I'm curious what the name for Bigfoot would be. That's it for today. I hope I have answered your burning question and that it's been at least somewhat informative and entertaining. There's a lot in store here on Wendigo-Go-Go, so be sure to subscribe, and if you enjoyed Hala's input, give us a like. Among other things, I intend to be starting a storytime episode, so if you have had a bizarre experience happen in your life, feel free to tell us about it in the comments below or send me a direct message and let me know that you'd like it featured. You can also reach me on Twitter and Instagram. As always, thank you so much for watching. أشوفك مرة جاي. مع السلامة.